This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, the editor-in-chief at FanDuel and at NumberFire.com, and this is episode 436 of the Late Round Podcast on the many shows that are part of the FanDuel Podcast Network. Thanks for tuning in. I record the 15 transaction show on Monday. I wait until the Monday night game is over, I make sure everything looks good, and then it gets published on Tuesday morning. Naturally, news is going to happen after that thing gets published. Like on Tuesday, when it was announced that Chris Godwin was going to miss Week 8 with a finger injury. Because of Mike Evans' splits with and without Chris Godwin, I think it makes sense for Evans to be more of a hold now than a sell, because you're selling him so low. Hopefully you can get a good outing from him here in Week 8. It's fine to field offers. You should always field offers. And you might see a good bit of James Bradberry in that Week 8 game. I just wanted to call out that he's not as obvious of a sell anymore. But anyway, before getting into the trends this week, I want to let you know that FanDuel Sportsbook is giving you a chance to bet on Week 8 of the NFL season risk-free with their exclusive same-game parlays. Simply place a 3-leg or more parlay on any NFL Week 8 game to be eligible for the offer. And then follow along as the game unfolds. If you don't win your bet, FanDuel will refund your bet up to $10 in site credit. What do you have to lose? You must be 21 years or older and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, and Iowa. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Terms apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. And in Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Without Chris Thompson on Sunday, James Robinson saw a target share of 25%. No other Jacksonville running back saw a target in that game. And in addition to that, no other running back saw a carry. Robinson now has a running back rush share of 94.7% on the season. Not only is that the highest mark in the NFL, but the player who's in second, Derrick Henry, he has a significantly lower share at 85.6%. And by the way, the data that I use for this goes back to 2011. But since that point in time, no one has had this high of a running back rush share. Not one running back. The highest that we've seen since then, before this year, was from Christian McCaffrey last year at 91.1%. So what James Robinson is doing is borderline historic. Let's just hope the Jags don't hurt his fantasy value by making a quarterback change. From weeks 3 through 5, AJ Green averaged a 10.7% target share per game, hitting a low 3.5% target share in week 5. But since that point, so over the last 2 weeks, Green has seen target shares of 28.2% and 27.7%. He had fairly high shares in weeks 1 and 2 at 26% and 22%, but the production didn't match. Over the last 2 weeks, Green's averaged a solid 16.4 PPR points per game. Like most fantasy analysts, I've been everywhere with AJ Green this year. I didn't target him in drafts. I then called him a buy or a hold based on his peripherals earlier in the season. And then I called him a drop after that 3% target share game in shallower leagues. Right now, honestly, I'd probably just see if I could swap some bench pieces for him, because there's always the chance that he's just going to get back into a rhythm. And he's also getting used to Joe Burrow. He's definitely one of those guys who I would not be trading a starter for, though. But things are at least trending up. As you guys know, you can quickly look at a yards to touchdowns conversion to spot players who are over and underperforming in the touchdown column, based on their yards. Of course, there's more context that's needed, but it's a quick and dirty way to see if a player is playing out of his mind or if he's not. Based on how many yards quarterbacks have needed per touchdown since 2011, the player who's exceeding expectation most this year, it's unsurprisingly Russell Wilson. But the player in second is Baker Mayfield. It makes sense when you look at his touchdown rate this year. It's 7.6%. It was 5.6% his rookie year and just 4.1% last year. If Baker is going to sustain this touchdown throwing pace, he's going to have to up that yardage total, and he's going to have to throw the ball more. The Browns do have a really favorable schedule upcoming, so maybe he's going to be able to do that, but we shouldn't expect this current pace. Trend 4 is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have targeted their wide receivers on just a little over 48% of their targeted attempts this year. They're one of 3 teams with a wide receiver target share below 50%, the other 2 being Las Vegas and San Francisco. This should change a little bit with Antonio Brown in the mix, but it's still pretty wild, and it's honestly slightly annoying. The Bucs are just spreading the ball around a lot. You would think that that number would be higher with Godwin and Evans, even with the context that Godwin has missed some time. But things are definitely different with Tom Brady under center. Deebo Samuel currently has an average depth of target of just 2.5 yards. Last season, that ADOT was 7.6 yards. It's sort of good that he's being used behind the line of scrimmage so much because it means they're wanting to get him the ball. And it also means that matchups probably matter a little bit less. But you still would like to see more down the field work because that's how we score points in chunks in fantasy football. He's banged up right now with a hamstring injury, but the ADOT seemed necessary to call out today. In Zach Moss's Week 6 return, he had a third of the team's running back rushes while Devin Singletary had 2/3. In Week 7, so this past week, Moss's running back rush share jumped to 47%, with Singletary at 53%. So this trend is just note that we're seeing more of a split backfield again, and we know that Moss is the better candidate for goal line work. Really, though, all this means is that both players are going to be obnoxious in fantasy football. But I should note, Buffalo has a pass-to-rush touchdown ratio of 4.0, meaning they've thrown for 4 times the amount of touchdowns than they've run for. That's a number that's third highest in the league, and it's also a number that's likely to regress. Another backfield that looked a little bit different in Week 7 was Tampa Bay's. Leonard Fournette was back, and he handled over 45% of the team's running back rushes, and more importantly, over 17% of the team's targets. Ronald Jones had just a 5% target share to go along with a 54% running back rush share. Ronald Jones was not the third down back. That's been the case for a lot of the year given his struggles as a receiver, but with a more capable and total runner back in the backfield, which is Leonard Fournette, the Tampa Bay situation has become a mess. With Austin Hooper sidelined in Week 7, Harrison Bryant played 77% of Cleveland snaps to David Njoku's 60%, and he also ran 5 more routes. Heading into the game, I tweeted about how Bryant was technically running ahead of Njoku and slightly preferred him as a result, but this game, since Hooper wasn't in, it makes it pretty clear that Bryant is ahead of Njoku right now. Hooper could be out again this week, which would make Bryant a good streaming play once again. According to Pro Football Focus's data, Joe Burrow is tied for the league lead with Russell Wilson in end zone targets, or targets that land in the end zone. Digging into that more, he's only converted 5 of those 27 attempts. That gives him the second worst conversion rate on those throws, ahead of only Drew Lock. Meanwhile, his yards to touchdown conversion shows that he's underperforming in the touchdown column, and his 3.1% touchdown rate is very, very low. All of this is to say that Joe Burrow is a regression candidate. Be prepared for better efficiency. The final trend this week is that the New England Patriots are currently the toughest matchup for opposing quarterbacks when looking at adjusted fantasy points allowed. Team quarterbacks against New England have scored about 5.7 fewer points than their season-long averages. Now keep in mind, the Patriots rank 4th best when you don't adjust for strength of opponent. What may be surprising is who's in second. It's Carolina. The Panthers are the 5th toughest opponent in just regular points allowed. But when you adjust for opponent, they get even better. That's because they face Derek Carr, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, and Drew Brees. Carr, Brady, Herbert, and Ryan each ranked 20th or worse in weekly scoring against the Panthers. This isn't just the product of a few pass attempts either. We know that you can run on Carolina, but they're allowing the lowest yards per attempt rate in the entire league. It's pretty impressive given the personnel that they're working with there. Now, I don't think it continues at this rate, but it's not a cakewalk matchup for quarterbacks this year. I think Thursday night is going to be pretty telling with Matt Ryan and a healthy Julio Jones facing off against them. That's going to do it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you've yet to subscribe to the Late Round Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter @LateRoundQB. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow.